Hi everyone, it's Emily, and today I'll be answering one of my most asked questions on the channel, and that is, how am I able to afford everything when it comes to collecting? It's always difficult to talk about personal finances because, well, they're rather personal, but I think this is a good discussion to have on the channel because when it comes to collecting, I feel like we really don't talk enough about how we're able to budget and balance our expenses when it comes to our hobby collecting with the rest of life. So in this video, I'll be sharing both kind of how I go about budgeting for video games, figures, and other hobby collecting things, as well as revealing my numbers of how I allocate all my funds each month for those who are curious. And before we start, I think it's necessary to acknowledge that everyone is at a different stage when it comes to personal finance. For me in particular, I am in a very early stage of my career, having been in school, in grad school for years, and I'm right now a postdoctoral fellow. And this is a position that's notorious for not being paid very much. So my financial circumstances are probably not going to be reflective of many people's personal finances. And I know there'll be some things that you'll be very surprised I don't spend money on, as well as things that you'll be super surprised that I do spend money on. So I'm hoping the takeaway from this video is that budgeting and working in hobby collecting is possible for everyone's budget. It might not be possible right now given certain financial hardships, like a loss of job or something like that. But I think the tools that I'll be going over today will be helpful for anyone looking to better their personal financial journey and feel more secure when it comes to balancing and fitting in all the hobby collecting that we do on the side. So the first part of this video will be me going over this budget template that I'll have also provided down in the description for free if you're interested. And then later I will share my real numbers for those who are curious. So here's a template that I actually use, made up with fictitious numbers just for illustrative purposes. And you actually can make a copy of this budget template using the link down below for free. You just go to File and select Make a Copy, and so it'll copy onto your Google Drive for you to edit and revise for whatever suits your needs. And I like to use what's called the zero-based budget, which technically is not zero because we have the total income minus total expenses has a remainder of $45. But in theory, it is a zero-based budget where every dollar that comes in is allocated to a certain category. So here I have all the projected gross income from just a regular work paycheck. And I will talk about this a little bit later, but I also like to utilize sinking funds when it comes to large upcoming expenses, such as scale figures. And then I also track of different expenses. I like to keep track of my income taxes, so that's why I like to use the gross income here. You could also change this to net or whatever comes into your bank account. I just like to keep track of how much I pay in taxes each month and annually. And then the rest of this is a balance of necessities. So housing are necessary expenses that you have to make every month. And these are just some made up numbers. Food, transportation, personal care, entertainment, which will include video game collecting as well as figures and subscription services and whatnot. And then I have other here, just like apparel if you want to buy clothes or gifts for other people, just miscellaneous expenses that are not part of these other categories, as well as different savings accounts. And if you're in credit card debt, or you have like a personal loan or something, you could put it down there as other things that you have to budget for to make those minimum payments. So I do like to project what amount will go into each of those categories, and then add up all my expenses during the month to see kind of if I made those target goals or just how the money is incorporated. So quickly here, I'll fill in the actual amount in this fictitious example. So this person was paid the amount projected. They made a little bit more from their extra side gig 1, as well as side gig 2 and side gig 3. They didn't make any cash back, or they didn't, they chose not to note it. And we'll skip over the sinking fund pool for now, but basically what this summarizes is that instead of putting $100 into the sinking fund, they allocated $155, so a little bit more. And then here's all the taxes. how much living expenses were, as well as transportation, personal care, what they put into savings and different retirement funds for those who are not in the US. That's what most of these are. And as well as their debt payments, minimum payment. And so here they have a leftover of $22.50. So up here is kind of an extra thing I like to do just during the month so I can keep track of how much I have budgeted versus how much extra income I have that I can maybe allocate towards video games or other hobby-related things. So here at the end of the month, they're left over with $60 that was technically budgeted for, but the extra expenses were just under $40, more than expected, but they kind of even out to just $22.50 left over for the end of the month. So I find these budgeting worksheets super helpful for my own financial journey, just to know where my money is going. I'm able to kind of make strides in reducing some of these necessary expenses, like with rent or my utility bills or food bills, and make sure I'm kind of in budget for what I have in mind, and also allow some extra sources of income to kind of help boost potential for allocating more funds to video games or other hobby-related expenses. Now, to go over sinking funds, I find these really helpful, especially for really large expenses. So some typical sinking funds that people talk about in the personal finance space is travel sinking funds, down payment on a home sinking fund, an emergency fund, which is something that everyone should have. While this is not financial advice, because I'm not a financial advisor, I think it is important to be prepared for the worst and have some money set aside in case there's a job loss or other unexpected things happen. That way you're not in a bind or have to scramble to make up extra cash. You can also allocate a gift fund, or if you want to go to concerts or something. And I like to keep track of how much is my balance for these, as well as if there's any projected goals. This is definitely not a realistic goal for a house fund in California, but it might be somewhere else. I also like to make a separate sinking fund for my hobbies. So as you see here, I have a lot of figures noted down, as well as some collector editions and some other things that haven't been made available for pre-order yet, but I know are coming, just so that I kind of keep track of these more expensive items that I want to collect. So whenever I add money into my sinking fund, I like to allocate it into the current balance column. And once I've met a goal, so for example, this Trails Altina Nendoroid, that was about $50. Once that sinking fund is complete, I like to also cross it out and mark it as green, as something that's been achieved before the deadline. So if we were to take the $155 that we put into our sinking fund for this new month, we could just allocate it how we see fit. So say we want to add $20 into our travel fund. We don't have to fund our emergency fund because that's met our goal for 3 to 6 months of living expenses. And because this Trails figure is actually soon coming out, so the deadline is coming up, I usually allocate more of my sinking funds towards upcoming releases. So I'm going to add old 50 there, and I might actually add some more just so that is almost funded. So we've used $90 out of the $155, and I will just add the rest here. And let's put maybe 10 tickets for that Christmas fund or that holiday fund that's coming up as well. So I think sinking funds are a great way to finance these more expensive hobby-related items. I know that a lot of stores and companies are pushing the buy now, pay later sort of payment options plans, but I think that's really dangerous territory, especially if you overabuse it. They usually make payments of like maybe $10 or $15 every month with 0% interest if you pay on time, but once those start adding up, it can be a bit much, especially if you have an unexpected expense come down the line, or if you kind of wish you used your funds for something else. So I think the nice thing with sinking funds is that you kind of stockpile money, and once something comes out, or if you have the choice to buy it out, you could kind of pause and reflect whether or not the really expensive item that you've been saving up for is something you really want in your collection. And if you want to use that money for that item, or would you rather redistribute that to something else that may have been announced in the meantime. So I'm a big supporter of sinking funds, especially when it comes to hobby collecting for expensive items like scale figures or collector's editions for video games. So that about covers how I go about budgeting each month with my projected income and keeping track of how much I actually spend each month in each different category. Now, this is an extra thing that I've added to this budget template for those who may or may not want it. I really like keeping track of my net worth totals on a monthly basis. I know some people who like to do it on an annual basis because of just the volatility in the markets and whatnot, especially if you are investing. But I really like the natural progression of seeing my savings and just hard work paying off over time. And so all of the things that are highlighted in green are what are your assets. So a lot of these are retirement funds or just general savings funds, or here I also track my tax withholdings because technically they're in my savings account sometimes, especially if it's from my side hustles or whatnot. And to make up your net worth, you add up all of your assets and you subtract all of your debts. And then here I have the credit card statement, but I actually do automatic payments for my credit card, so it's actually not paid technically at the end of each month. It's just whenever the billing statement cycle is. So oftentimes I just keep track of what was on there that'll eventually be taken off during the next billing cycle. But if you want to utilize this and you have other debts like student loan debt or your mortgage or personal loan or something like that, you can easily just add more columns in here and keep track of your monthly net worth. And I also created a chart for this just to kind of see the progress over time. So that about wraps up how I go about budgeting for my everyday expenses as well as my hobby expenses. I hope some of you found this useful. There's plenty of other ways to go about budgeting, so definitely do whatever fits your lifestyle the best. This is the one I've just found the most useful for my personal situation. So hopefully this budget template or just me talking about this could help some of you, especially if you're kind of just starting your personal finance journey. All right, now for the moment that many of you probably clicked on this video, what is my exact financial circumstances? So I mentioned before that I am a postdoc, and not everyone knows what that is. So basically, after you get your PhD, you have the option to do additional training. And so that's usually for 2 to 3 years. And it's because it is a training program, it's usually not paid very well. Because I live in California, which is a very high cost of living state, I actually have a pretty decent wage. So I make just over $70,000 a year just from my day job. So that's about the median household income in the US right now. And because I do live in California, it doesn't stretch super far, as you'll soon see. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the pay I do have at the moment. And after my postdoc finishes, there'll be more doors open to me for my career to move up. So I'll be sharing 3 months of my living expenses and my hobby fund allocations with you in the same sort of template setup that I shared earlier. So I'll just be sharing the last 3 months worth of expenses. So I'll start with July. So this is actually the highest income month of the ones I'll be showing today. And that's primarily because I sold a lot. So here is my postdoc fellowship payment. My AdSense is how much I make off of YouTube. And I usually budget for or project about $100 because that's the threshold that AdSense needs in order to have a payout. This month was pretty good. I think I had some well-performing videos, so that's why it's a bit more. So it's nearly 900 on gross. Again, this is all gross income. So you'll see how much tax is taken out later. And for selling, I sell on multiple platforms, and so I kind of congregated these all together just for privacy. But I usually expect maybe about a minimum of $100 a month because I am selling off a large chunk of some of my other collections that are not game related. I mentioned before that I'm really into K-pop, so I have a lot of K-pop memorabilia, like cards and albums and whatnot. I've been slowly selling off, and July is when I sold off a lot of it. This is the total income that came in. And as you see, it doesn't match the total income up here. And that's because I actually pulled money out of what I'm calling my prudent reserve. So this is probably where my budget deviates from most people's, because I have a fund set aside that I was contributing to the past few years when I was living with family. And so I didn't have living expenses at that time, so all of my extra income went to that fund, and now I'm drawing it out so that I can reallocate it to some of my more tax advantage accounts, such as like a 401k or whatnot. So that's why you see that there's a lot more income here than what's technically down here. Because it's not really income, I'm just pulling it out of savings, which I'm considering as income for that month. So this is the added funds to the sinking fund pool. And I usually put 70 here because that is 70% of what I'm budgeting for my AdSense. I usually reserve about 30% for taxes whenever I get paid from Google. So here I added the 70% of what actually came in, and then this is all the amount I contributed from all my selling to my sinking funds for this month, which is a lot. I usually don't contribute this much. And then the rollover here is just from last month. So I had $945 left over from last month that I just added to this month. Here you see where all my expenses go. So I pay a lot in rent. This is a studio apartment and it is not very big, but it's a very expensive area. So unfortunately, this is the amount I have to pay every month. My utilities, I usually budget around $60 and it usually comes out to just over $40. Internet is $60. My renter's insurance right now is $13. And then I usually budget maybe $20 for like household goods like cleaning supplies and whatnot. Here is all of my tax withholding. So this is taken out of my check from work. And then I also put my health insurance down here. And this is how much I'm reserving or withholding from my Google AdSense check. You'll notice I don't have the selling tax withholding listed here. I actually do that on a separate spreadsheet, so I don't incorporate it into my budget usually, because I usually just take my net sales after taking out my tax withholdings when adding them to my monthly budgets. So for groceries, as you see here, it's pretty low. I did budget $50 for restaurants, but honestly, I don't usually go out to restaurants often. And it's never for $50, it's usually like closer to $20, maybe once a month. I usually try to keep my grocery bill around $150 or whatever the difference is from my restaurant budget. And I usually do pretty well at sticking to around there when adding them together, as you see here. And then here for skincare and medical, I don't usually budget because it's usually not something that comes up often. I did buy something for skincare here, it looks like. And here is my entertainment allocations. So most of my extra money does go into these categories here. So as you see here, I spent over $450 for video games this month, which is a lot. I imagine a lot of these are pre-orders. I may have bought a couple high-ticket items maybe this month, and maybe did like a Video Games Plus order or something, which may be why that number is so high. I also, I still collect for K-pop and just other general music, so this was kind of a high-paying month again. I think this was maybe a catch-up month because I hadn't purchased any music or K-pop albums for months, so that's why that number is probably high. And then for figures and merch, I may have bought a figure this month, which is why it's there for a good price. Something I probably shared in a video already. And it looks like I probably bought some of those YT t-shirts here, maybe 2 of those orders. And then this must be for my dad's birthday. Yeah, that's in July. So most of my salary goes towards my savings accounts because I have some pretty big financial goals I want to meet this year. and that is maxing out all of my retirement accounts that I'm eligible for. And so that's what I'm doing here with basically maxing out my 401k, my HSA, after my employer already contributed a little bit to it, and then my Roth IRA. So I also try to put $100 back into my prudent reserve just so that I'm not taking $1,000 out each month from that specific fund. So yeah, that was July, and as you see here, I went about $21 over budget. So when you look at August, I actually roll that over here. So you may have noticed that I do not have transportation listed as one of my expenses, and that is simply because I do not own a car, so I don't have to pay for gas or insurance or a car payment. I'm also very fortunate in that I don't have any student loan debt or credit card debts. So this is everything that I pay for, and what's omitted here is what I don't pay for. So the car situation is sort of a sacrifice I've had to make given my living situation. I don't really need one, so I'm okay right now. And as I've shown, my retirement funds have been kind of my savings priority, and I'd like to shift eventually to saving for a down payment for a house or something down the line. But right now I really want to front load a lot of my retirement funds just so that I could take advantage of compound interest and all those kind of nerdy things when it comes to personal finances. And then this month I made a little bit less in AdSense, so it went from almost 900 to around 600. Selling also went down. Still a pretty good selling month for me. Usually if I sell over $200, that's a pretty good month for me. So I must have been really just trying to sell a lot those past months. I don't usually record my cash back like from my high yield savings accounts or anything, because I just want that to keep in my savings account and not feel tempted to take from that. But I think I had some cash back from a Rakuten deal. I think I bought sneakers. Yeah, I think I bought shoes, and that had a pretty good cash back. So I decided to add that back in. Here, it's the same thing. I was able to add an additional $285 to my sinking funds this month. And I also took out money from my sinking funds. And this was to finance Disney World tickets. For my work, I planned to go to a conference in Orlando, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to fit in the Disney parks there. But the coworker that also was going wanted to go, so I kind of bought tickets last minute with her to be able to visit the parks. So I think that's what that is. Then again, the prudent reserve rollover that I mentioned before, this is basically going back to my Roth 401k so that I can maximize the tax advantages that retirement account offers. Very similar outlook for all of my housing costs, as well as my tax withholding and insurance. Food, I overspent on food this month, looks like. Gaming, I didn't buy many games this month, especially compared to last month in July. So it looks like I only bought something for $65. I still was buying a lot of K-pop because my favorite group was celebrating their 15th anniversary, so I've been buying a lot of things for that activities. And so this is how much the Disney park tickets were for 3 days plus the special after party event. So they're expensive. And then did the same thing here for all of my savings allocation, and I was able to put $100 back into my prudent reserve. Then lastly, we have September here. So here, my AdSense was going down, mostly because I wasn't putting as many videos out. That's been the trend lately. I didn't sell as much either, but $320 was still pretty good for me. And I was able to contribute, well, looks like I didn't add anything to my sinking funds, mostly because of how much I think I was saving a bit for my Disney trip in case I wanted to buy things outside of what my work would be able to reimburse. And it looks like I also took out extra from my prudent reserve. I think that was to help me pay for the new Trails pocket watch. So sometimes I do that for my prudent reserve if it's something I don't want to miss out on, like a pre-order window. And here's all my rent, utilities, and everything. My tax withholdings, my grocery bill. It was another expensive month, so looks like I've been overspending on food. So that's really nice about these templates is I'm able to identify an issue so that I could do better next month. And it's okay if you go over budget. Nice thing about the zero-based budget is you can move things around to kind of make up for your loss, which once we go back up, you'll see here, looks like I bought some more games and less in K-pop, and then something that's figure or merchandise related. And I think this is another UT t-shirt. I think it was for the Xenosaga one. Something miscellaneous, I don't remember. And then putting money into savings, and I wasn't able to add $100 back to my prudent reserve. But how everything worked out was I had about $30 extra that I was able to roll into October, which was good because there were some things during my Disney trip that I needed to pay for. I think I bought some like extra food and stuff, so that kind of helped cushion that. But yeah, that was sort of a look into what these look like. I'll also show you what my sinking funds look like currently after depleting it for those Disney World park tickets. It's not as nice as it probably should be at this moment. So as you see here, a lot of my sinking funds have been depleted, especially my non-gaming related ones. Though I did put the Switch 2 here because it's something I think I should prioritize by, I put a tentative date for 2025. I don't know what's coming out. I'll change it once they announce it. I don't really want to speculate. But here, I kind of keep track of all the figures I have on pre-order, or I just recently purchased the Marth figure from Amazon through the Amazon Japan seller. They haven't shipped it yet, that's why I put it here. I need to sell some things to help make up for this once it does ship, because I think it's supposed to not arrive until November, so I think it's going to be a week or two before they ship it. I was able to fund my Altina Nendo, and I'm very close to funding V for next month. And I need to prioritize some more of these things because, yeah, they're looking a little sad right now, especially this Blu-ray I need to fund. That's not gaming related. I also like to keep my sinking fund tallies that I was able to fund over here, just for reference of how much I paid for them. Some of the figures here that I bought from Amazon Japan are a little inflated because this is how much I bought as a gift card. So it's not necessarily I bought them for that price, if you understand. But yeah, it's just to give me an idea of what I paid for certain things. So yeah, the purpose of this is to share what things I have on pre-order at the moment and the things I'm looking to pre-order soon. So yeah, I hope this was insightful. I didn't want to put this out to brag or anything because these were pretty successful months of me reselling things in order to fund this hobby. I didn't want to brag about, for example, my AdSense or anything. I think I do okay. I don't know what other people with similar size channels get every month. I definitely have been slowing down on videos, so I don't get as much from that nowadays. And I don't take other sponsorships at the moment for other ways to get revenue from this channel. Might be something I consider in the future, but I just haven't at the moment. But yeah, again, I hope this was helpful for anyone who needs some pointers when it comes to budgeting for some of these very expensive hobby related items. And for those who already are pretty good with budgeting, maybe it was interesting to hear my perspective. That could either inspire for things you should or shouldn't do with your own budgets. But I consider personal finance a journey. Not everything's gonna be perfect, like I think I showcased in my own spreadsheets. But I really hope that the main takeaway from this video is that it's totally possible to set funds aside comfortably for our hobbies. We just have to prioritize necessary spending things like housing and food and whatnot, as well as financial goals for the future. And not get caught up into the trap of what other people may be doing or showing on social media. I know that some people like to really show off how many games they buy and whatnot, but you don't really know what their financial situation is. So just be very judicious on your own financial journey, and hopefully we'll all be at a place where we can all comfortably collect what we want and feel pretty satisfied with how our hobbies are shaping up to be alongside our other financial goals. But let me know if you have any questions for me regarding what I covered today or anything else you'd like to see maybe in a future video. I could definitely consider incorporating that into something down the line. And until my next video, bye guys.